Okay, so on the back of your homework page, you're going to write your name. We're going to read this together, and then when you're done, I'll ask you a question about it, so make sure that you're paying attention. This one starts off with, whole towns vote to move as climate change affects Western Alaska. You can see they seem pretty happy. They don't realize what's about to happen, I'm sure. As the climate has changed, temperatures all over the planet have been rising. This has been especially true in the Arctic. People there have been feeling the effects of climate change for years. Even their language is now being affected. The Yupik, a native people of western Alaska, have dozens of words for different kinds of sea ice. Sea ice is formed out of frozen ocean water and plays an important role in the Arctic people's lives. Researchers have found, however, that some of these words are not being used as much. One word that is heard less often these days is tagnehenek. It means thick, dark ice. The reason is simple. As temperatures have risen, tagnehenek has disappeared. As a result, the word is disappearing too. It is one more way that warmer weather has changed life in the Arctic. Melting ice puts communities in danger. The effects of climate change are so serious that many communities are now in danger. There are 31 Alaskan towns and cities at immediate risk from the melting ice. Many inhabitants have to relocate or somehow adapt. In December, we normally have waters that covered in ice, but right now we have open water out there, said Vera Metcalf. She leads the Eskimo Walrus Commission, which works to protect 19 native communities along Alaska's western coast. These communities rely on sea ice to live. It's our life, she said. The amount of Arctic sea ice went down to a record low in November. It has been worn down by warming air, warming seas, and unhelpful wind patterns. The region's 2016 temperature has been just over 6 degrees Fahrenheit higher than a century ago. In some places, it's been about 36 degrees higher. This has been an especially bad year. Almost every year now we look at the record of sea ice and say, wow, said Tad Pfeiffer, a geophysicist at the University of Colorado. But this year it was like 3 times wow, he said. We can try to adapt. Less sea ice makes life especially hard for hunters. The walruses they hunt need ice to survive. The window of opportunity for hunting continues to shrink, Metcalf said. As a result, hunger is now a problem facing many families in the Arctic. It's not like the walrus populations are changing, it's the climate. It's that the climate is changing the conditions, Metcalf said. We can try to adapt and hunt caribou or moose, but it's not easy. It comes at a cost to us. The Arctic is warming twice as quickly as the rest of the world. There are early signs that this temperature increase is speeding up, according to Jeremy Mathis. He leads the Arctic program at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. For people who live in the Arctic, there is no question about whether their environment is changing, he said. The ice is melting earlier and earlier and coming back later and later in the year. Towns vote to move inland. Frost locked deep in the soil is melting, causing buildings to sink. Communities are seeing their coastlines wear away. More and more, they are exposed to powerful storms with less sea ice to protect them from the harsh weather. Several Alaskan towns and villages are wrestling over whether to fight these changes or retreat. 2 coastal villages, Shishmarif and Kivalina, have voted to relocate. A third, Nutak, has already begun moving. These communities need to be moved as soon as possible before a large storm hits, said Victoria Herman. She leads the Arctic Institute, which has been studying these changes. There is not much support for them, however. The United States has no national sea level rise plan and no system to deal with people who have to relocate. In American politics, the issue of climate change is very much on the sidelines. Meanwhile, communities in the Arctic are being faced with incredibly difficult decisions. Having to move elsewhere is unimaginable, Metcalf said. We've been here for centuries, but we may have to consider it for the sake of our children and grandchildren. What I'd like for you to do now is take a look at the back of that sheet that I gave you. What you're going to write down is you're going to tell me what the problem was in this article. You're going to have to go back as well and listen to it again if you need to. I want you to include two different kinds of information to back up your idea of what the problem is. I want you to quote directly from the text, and I also want you to use a paraphrase as well. Remember, that means to put it in your own words. So when you tell me about the problem in the text, what I'd like for you to do is include quotes and paraphrase to back up what you're saying.